Yes. Yeah, in Romans 10. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's, in the Old Testament you find call upon the name of the Lord used quite a bit. And certainly, if we're paying attention to that, that will help us to understand the different ways that that phrase is used. Sometimes it's in the context, or I should say many times in the context of seeking God in prayer, seeking His help in prayer, crying out to Him. Other times it's used in the context of offering a sacrifice, a worship to the Lord. But, definitely, and I'm talking about the phrase call upon. Okay. But when you say call upon the name of the Lord and you shall be saved, right, then that kind of defines the range of what that is about. And of course, as Brad pointed out last week, Romans 10 definitely makes that clear. You find it used for the continuing practice of Christians as well. The phrase call upon in Timothy. Most notable, certainly, besides Pentecost, is in Acts 22, where Paul is retelling his conversion and how Ananias, when he came to him, he said, "Arise and be baptized, calling upon the name of the Lord." Got to look at it because I think there was a third part to that. And now why do you wait? This is verse 16 in Acts 22. And now why do you wait? Rise and be baptized and wash away your sins, calling on His name. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely used in the context of conversion there. Not only as it starts out in Acts 2 on the day of Pentecost, but also here. But it's also used in Timothy in the context of the continuing Christian life as well. Okay. And Romans 10, I think, puts it in the context of conversion. Yeah. Last week, the sheet we had was on the Great Commission, right? So somehow we got there. But the main topic was about the Great Commission. Now, what I'm doing this week, and I'm introducing you to the Story of Redemption film series. Now, every member of this congregation should be able to get free access to it. You may have to create an account for that to happen. And you would be able, with the free access, you would be able to use it for, self-edification and study, to study with members of your family or friends. Ask them if they would like to do a Zoom Bible study with you. Remember, if you don't have an account where you pay more money for Zoom, or pay money, period, for Zoom, you'll get 45 minutes, I think, something like that, for use on Zoom. With me, to do what I do, I had to buy an account. because we often will need more time than that. Okay, so this would be the first one in the entire series, I think, that James Knorr did. And the length of this series, he has it divided up into different blocks depending on how much time you think that you might have to study for a person. I've used the one with 33. I think that's the longest series. 33, I've used that multiple times. And we actually went through it on a Wednesday night study years ago as an introduction. Although it's an available resource and a very good resource, I don't know if any have actually used it to think, well, let me ask so-and-so. They used to be a member here, and maybe they'd be interested in going through the study again, or ask a friend or a neighbor. But that's, certainly they can enrich you in your understanding, but it can also be a tool that you use. It's not the only tool. World Bible School is a fabulous tool that not only has the hard copies of different lessons, but it has internet access too, where a person can go on that and do a self-study. And if you're doing it with them at the same time, also using Zoom, you certainly could use it that way. Mathetes or Mathetes, if you want to do it, pronounce it instead of in the Greek way, the English way, it means disciple. That's a World Bible School product. It's free. The World Bible School stuff is free, and it is something that you can access a lot of things that are not only valuable for helping a person to understand salvation, but also discipleship as well. Same way with here. These have, even though I didn't copy that side of the sheet for you, they're on the back side of a normal sheet. There is a whole section for discipleship. So I gave you the front side, which we're looking at today. So we do have tools. On Wednesday night, I've used Bible Project as a broad resource for studying different Bible topics. It's very good and learning about each book of the Bible. The orientation, I believe, of the creators of it is evangelical. But rarely do, in all the years I've used it, like on Wednesday night, rarely have we run into anything questionable on the use of that. So they seem to do a pretty good job on it, and they try to be aware of distinctions in denominations and to be as non-denominational as possible in their presentations. So that's BibleProject.com. So let's take a look at this video.
Whenever we're seeking God, a lot of questions come to mind, such as, who is God and what is he like? Where do we come from? why do we exist? And if there is a God, why is there so much pain and evil and suffering in the world? And on a personal level, does God have a plan for my life? My first year in ministry, I was serving with a group of Christ followers as a minister in a church. And there was a young girl in the group named Chelsea. And she was the sweetest, kindest little girl. And we found out one evening that she had leukemia. And just 2 days later, she passed away. And I can remember going through her notebook, and it was just God-saturated, filled with thoughts and questions and poems about God. And she asked me to speak at her funeral, something no little girl ought to ever have to do. And it drove me to ask some of these same questions again. And so I went back to the Bible, looking for answers. The Bible is a big book, filled with a lot of smaller books. But overall, it tells just one story. A story of faith, hope, and love. And ultimately, a story of redemption. The Bible begins with a book called Genesis, which is a word which means beginning. And the opening words of the Bible are profound. This is what it says. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day. I love science and learning. When I was 12, I received a telescope for my birthday, and I loved looking up at the stars and the moon and thinking about the universe. When I was in college, I received a biology degree, and I was even accepted into medical school. So I believe in science, and science has helped tremendously improve our lives and helped us make some amazing discoveries. Scientific explanations have helped us understand much about the world. The scientific theories about the origin of life all begin with the earth, water, and amino acids. But where did these things come from? The Big Bang Theory says that the universe began with a superheated ball of mass which exploded, providing a scientific explanation for how the universe came to be expanding, which it certainly is. But the question I always had was, where did the superheated ball of mass come from? You see, these theories all assume creation. They do not explain the ultimate origin of things. That is why for me, whenever I've doubted my faith, I've always come back to this. This world and this universe had to come from somewhere. And for me, that means that there must be a God. And that has profound implications for my life. Of course, today, the question is, which God? Now, there are a lot of faiths out there. Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, the New Age movement, and Christianity. How do we know which one is the right one? That's a good question. But for now, just encourage us to examine the biblical account and see if it doesn't ring true and well describe our world as we know it. According to the biblical account, God created the land and the seas, the plants and the trees, the sun and the moon, the creatures of the sea, and the birds in the air, and the creatures that crawl upon the ground. And there was a pattern in this creation. Each time that God created something, God saw that it was good. So what do you think? What do you think of this biblical account? And what evidence do you see that points towards a creator of the universe?
Okay, so stop sharing that. And what I'm going to do is bring up the same study sheet that if you picked up one in the back, you have that. So let me now, because this, I want you to be able to be familiar with the site as well. What I'm going to try to do is share this. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. And like on the website, you can see study guides. So what I just showed you is from the core series. You can see all these different series. Journey to Egypt, King David and King Jesus, Faith Search Around the World, even a special one on Iceland, Kings and Kingdom, Creation to New Creation, Advent, Birth of Christ, Finding Faith in Middle Earth. That's one of the newer ones. Several of these are fairly new. And then children's. We've actually taken the time to introduce those who are teaching children to the resources here for children. And it's definitely something that can be used to enhance Bible studies of our children classes. Now, so I'm going to the core series, and we just saw 1.1. So there it is. And we got this passage. So I'll just read that. Normally you have people that will read it, whoever you're studying with. They will have certain things, certain questions to answer or to read, and then everyone can join in answering them. But I'll just go ahead and read this for the sake of time. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be an expanse in the middle of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse. And it was so. And God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then at the very end of that chapter, verse 31, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening and there was morning, the sixth day. So you can see certain words in black. If for example, I've done with the Lithuanians for all this past year. Some individuals may be interested in knowing the meaning of certain English words. It doesn't have to be only those in black, but those are put there just kind of as a reminder of words that more likely than not are words that in another language they'll ask about, and it can give you time to explain it more in its English meaning. We find that the Lithuanians, some of them know English already, and those that don't really haven't been particularly interested in learning English. I guess they've got enough with just knowing their own language and Russian. But we go to the questions, and if you have limited time, then they have the recommendation, the one with an asterisk, the ones with an asterisk by it. Try to at least focus on those. But we'll see with the time we have if we can discuss all these. First one, what questions have you about God or faith? If you could ask God a question, what would it be? And you can see the idea is just to get them discussing some very basic things, but it often leads to deeper questions. But what questions have you about God or faith? If you could ask God a question, what would it be? If you love us, we're asking God, right? If you love us, why do we have to suffer? Now, in like studying with the Lithuanians, you have individuals from maybe 2 or 3 different congregations that are present, at least 2, the one in the capital city, Vilnius, and one in Kaunas, which we support. And they all have a pretty good knowledge of the Bible, but it's some of them don't. And so it seems like most questions are of interest to them, but there's always someone that seems to have a pretty good answer to the questions because of the knowledge they've already developed. But what about suffering? Certainly, that changes the flavor. We don't even know what life would be like without suffering, right? But we have that hope when Jesus returns that will be eliminated. There'll be no more pain or death. So that's a great hope to have. But why do we have to go through it now, in this life? It does, yeah. It definitely sets a contrast between something you really don't want to live with for eternity, for sure. But it always begs the questions like, well, why, right? Why is there suffering? Do we have an answer to that in the Bible? Yeah, what is it, Brad? Okay, that message is definitely part of the biblical message. And even what goes along with it is the Father's Day message, right? He is treating us as sons, as his sons. It's a kind of discipline. But, yeah. 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 Yeah, now that's all in James chapter 1. And it definitely brings up that we can actually have joy in suffering. And of course, that comes through an understanding. It comes through a wisdom of how suffering can actually shape our lives in a different way than if we didn't have suffering. But if we're having problems with understanding, like there's a certain situation that we or loved ones going through, he described the little girl who, I guess after they learned she had leukemia, she was dead within two days. Is that what he said? So things happened very, very quickly there, and you know it had to hit everyone. It was in a way that was devastating. So why does God let things like that happen? Why is there this kind of level of suffering in human life anyway? Why is it allowed? Does it go back to, is there a reason for it? That it wouldn't have been this way, but now it is for a definite reason? Right. I know what you're talking about. I'm trying to think of the way that's worded. What is that? In chapter 10 of 1 Corinthians? Yeah, verses 13 and following. No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. Therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. Now, is he talking about the suffering kind of temptation here, or the temptation to sin? Temptation to sin? Yeah. Right. Now, one can be connected to the other, right? But in the Genesis, he started out with the Genesis story. Is there anything, if you continue reading Genesis, that will reveal, make sense of why there is suffering? Yeah, the disobedient Adam and Eve, certainly the not having faith in God, the disobedience that certainly happened, wanting to buy into temptation. Now this is a different kind of temptation. It was the temptation to sin, but the temptation that came from the serpent, right? And we know to later in the Bible be identified as Satan. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right, so people bring a lot of woe on themselves, right? Okay, so yeah, I mean that takes it to another level when you have people with great power, a lot of money, companies, and they use maybe ingredients, whether it's in foods or in other kinds of chemicals that are supposedly used for good purposes, but it ends up being a cause of great illnesses among people. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, wasn't that the kind of thing you would use on babies even? Yeah. So the idea of the curse because of sin and being subjected to that, the human race being subjected to it, it was not left without its grace as well. In all actions, even when God did bring a punishment or a discipline, he did tend to turn it into a type of discipline, although it was authentically a kind of punishment too. God always provided grace in order to overcome and to have blessing in life that comes from him. And certainly the whole story of the Bible reveals that. We wouldn't know it but for the revelation that comes from God. That he lets us know that he created us for a very high purpose. Psalms 8 is a good one on that. Yeah, Romans, the whole chapter 8 there, with 8:28 included. Yeah, it really expresses the wonders of the grace of God in a world which is in travail, the pains of childbirth. But what's described before that passage you gave, the pains of childbirth, definitely tells us that even with the pain, the travail, God has already designed it all to bring us an everlasting hope and the fulfillment of the purpose that he created us for. So childbirth produces something that makes people happy, right? That's the whole point. You didn't. Well, you're very fortunate. I've never had any pain related to it either. I had sympathy. A great deal of sympathy. Yeah. 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 Well, in what you're describing, and Annette, what you're thinking of and describing in the pain, the suffering, and even looking at, we know that even temptations, the sin certainly will bring about suffering as well when we decide to go that direction. But any kind of pain can be an occasion to where we either trust in God and turn, pray to Him with the faith that this is in His hands. I trust Him regardless of the outcome of things. And to ask for wisdom. Going back to what you read there, that's the gift that God promises to give if we will turn to Him. Wisdom doesn't mean the pain will be taken away, but it can be, certainly. And we should pray with that in mind. Pray for deliverance. Pray for those who are persecuting us. That's what the pray, bless, and curse not. So asking for God's blessing upon them. I believe God tells us things like that because it's very important to Him too to see us trusting Him in this way. Yeah, go ahead, Brad. Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah, so using that example of the blind man in John chapter 9, I'm repeating the essence of this for the sake of those on the live streaming. um, then we can take from that God has a purpose that certainly can end up being a great blessing for that person, but it can also bring glory to Him in the midst of any kind of suffering. Always, yeah. And of course, if as Christians we're approaching that as partners with God, right? Then we're going to be aware, and when we pray and bring comfort, pray for and bring comfort to individuals, this is the kind of thing we will have in mind. And it will strengthen our faith and their faith. Yes, Annette. Uh-huh. Right. Okay. Yeah. So others are getting what's coming to them, but why me, Lord? What have I ever done? Of course, in that song, it's to deserve the blessings, right? So that song looks at it a different way. So, yeah, usually when you're doing using one of these sheets and doing a study, you don't get through every question, and that's why thinking ahead and thinking, is there one question at least that I don't want to leave out that will definitely bless them and help build their understanding. So hopefully that gives you a good example. I'm going to approach this in different ways throughout the summer here, that because as you saw, there are different, when I showed you earlier, there are different groupings of topics. And there's some very good topics, videos in all of them. But there's also videos that relate to giftedness, like the gift of evangelism and other gifts, the gift of caring. And I think that might be of interest to you as well. So, but if you're a member of the congregation, you can get the free access. I've already sent out the link to this. It does involve signing up, of course. But that's the way you'll get the free access to create your own account, and you'll be able to use it. Well, I sent an email, and really, even though I copied and pasted it within the email, I sent a PDF with it. And what I've been told by individuals is that the links work on the PDF. They don't work on the email. So the links I give you work on the PDF. But we are helping James, of course, helping to support his worldwide ministry. And in turn, we get, for example, the free access to use for ourselves or studying with someone else. You had a question, Aldrin? On the gifts, no. I would have to create questions, but each gift has a big list of different ways it can be used. But certainly I know enough scriptures in the Bible on gifts and things that we can certainly go to scriptures and have a discussion on. Yeah. Okay, God bless you. We're going to set up for worship now.